The sky turned silver on the morning that everything changed. It happened so fast that nobody had time to understand what was happening. One moment the sun was shining normally over Seoul, and the next moment 3 massive ships appeared in the clouds. They were so huge that they blocked out the light. The ships looked like nothing humans had ever built. They were smooth, shiny, and shaped like nothing on Earth. People stopped in the streets and looked up. Traffic stopped. The markets went quiet. Everyone just stood there, staring. The ships did not attack. They simply floated above the major cities of the world. One appeared over Seoul, one over New York, and one over London. Scientists scrambled to understand what was happening. Military bases went on full alert. Governments called emergency meetings. The president of Korea sat in an underground bunker and waited for orders that nobody knew how to give. What do you do when aliens arrive? Then the message came. It came through every speaker, every radio, every television, and every computer at the same time. The voice was calm and clear, but it sounded strange. It was not quite like a human voice. It had something electronic in it, but also something warm. The voice spoke in every language at once, or that is how it seemed. The message was simple and clear. We are the Valens. We have arrived to bring peace to your world. All projectile weapons must be destroyed. This includes guns, missiles, cannons, and all similar devices. Any human who uses such weapons will be stopped. Any government that tries to use such weapons will be destroyed. We do not want war. We want peace. But we will take whatever actions are necessary. The world went into shock. Governments tried to understand what the Valens meant by projectile weapons. Scientists argued about it. Some thought the ban might not be so bad. After all, they had other weapons, did they not? Laser weapons existed. Energy weapons existed. But the Valens were clear. All projectile weapons must be destroyed. Within hours, the Valens sent down their enforcement drones. These machines were silver and black, shaped like strange insects with many legs. They landed in military bases, weapons storage facilities, and government armories. The drones were fast and very efficient. They scanned everything, identified projectile weapons, and destroyed them. A missile was turned to dust. A tank was melted. Thousands of guns were destroyed in seconds. There was no resistance. What could humans do against machines that could move at impossible speeds? Park Min-ho watched the destruction from inside the Korean Defense Ministry. He was a captain in the Korean military, a smart man with gray at the edges of his hair. He had seen a lot in his life, but this was different. This was something nobody could have prepared for. He sat in a room with generals and government officials. They all looked worried. Some looked angry. One general wanted to fight, but Min-ho said nothing. He just watched and waited and thought. When the destruction was finished, the Valens sent another message. They showed themselves for the first time. A Valens appeared on television. It looked strange but not completely alien. It had 2 arms and 2 legs like a human. It had a face with 2 eyes. But its skin was blue, and it seemed to shine with its own light. Its eyes were too large and too black. It wore something that looked like armor, but it was smooth and seemed to be part of its body. The Valens spoke again. It said the weapon ban was now in effect. Any human found with a projectile weapon would be imprisoned or executed. Any government that tried to secretly keep such weapons would be destroyed. That night, Min-ho called a meeting with people he trusted. He did not invite the generals or the government officials. Instead, he called Ha-yun, a brilliant engineer who had worked on defense projects for years. Ha-yun was a woman in her early 30s with dark hair and quick, intelligent eyes. She had always been good at solving problems that seemed impossible. Min-ho also called Tai-o, an archery champion from the mountains south of Seoul. Tai-o was tall and quiet, but he was the best archer in the country. He could hit a target from impossible distances. Min-ho also invited his friend's son, a boy named Ji-won, who was only 12 years old. Jiwon was different from other children. He had played video games his whole life and had won competitions. His reflexes were incredible. His ability to understand angles and distances was something special. His parents thought he was a genius. The five of them sat together in a small hidden room beneath the ministry. Minho explained his idea. "The Valens made a mistake," he said. "They banned projectile weapons. But look at how they define projectile weapons. They mean guns and missiles. They mean weapons with powder that throws things at high speed. But what about older weapons? What about crossbows? What about slingshots? What about bows and arrows?" Ha-Yun understood immediately. Her eyes went wide. They did not think of those weapons as important enough to ban. To them, those weapons are primitive. They would not consider them real weapons. "Exactly," Minho said. "But that is our advantage. We can use old weapons, but we can make them new. We can use modern materials. We can use technology to make them better than any gun. And the Valens detection systems will not recognize them as weapons because they are looking for projectile weapons. And to them, crossbows are not projectile weapons. They are old things." Teo nodded slowly. He understood the mountains and he understood weapons. He could see the truth in what Minho was saying. "We can train people," Teo said. "I can teach them. It will take time, but humans can become very good with a bow or a crossbow. We have done it before, long ago." Ha-Un was already thinking about the engineering. "I can design something special," she said. "A crossbow that uses carbon fiber. A crossbow with electronic targeting. A slingshot that can be as accurate as any rifle. We have the materials. We have the knowledge. We just need a place to build them." Jiwon, the young boy, had been quiet the whole time. Now he spoke. His voice was small, but his words were clear. "I can see angles," he said. "I can see where things need to go. I can help you know if your designs will work. In my games, I always know exactly what distance something is and how fast it moves. I think I can do that with real weapons, too." Minho looked at the boy and smiled. Something about Jiwon's confidence was good to see. Maybe, just maybe, humanity had a chance. The Valens thought they had won. They thought they had taken away humanity's power. But they did not understand that humans always find a way. They adapt. They create. They refuse to stay defeated. "Then we begin," Minho said. "We will build in secret. We will train in secret. And when we are ready, we will show the Valens that humanity does not surrender." Outside, the Valens' ships floated in the sky, peaceful and quiet. But inside, humanity was already fighting back. The mountains south of Seoul were beautiful and quiet. Few people went there anymore. The thick forests and steep valleys kept most tourists and visitors away. This is why Minho and Ha-Un chose the mountains for their secret project. Deep in a hidden valley, they found an old tunnel that had been used for something else long ago. They made it bigger and stronger. They brought in equipment carefully, piece by piece. Nobody noticed because the Valens' drones only watched the cities. The forests were too thick for their sensors to see clearly. Ha-Un set up a workshop inside the tunnel. She was brilliant at understanding how things worked. She took apart guns and studied them. She looked at ancient bows and arrows and crossbows. She studied physics and mathematics and engineering. Then she began to design something new, something that had never been built before. A crossbow that combined the old with the new. The crossbow she designed used carbon fiber, which was stronger than steel, but lighter than aluminum. The string was made from special material developed for space applications. The trigger mechanism was electronic, which meant it was precise and fast. She added solar-powered targeting lights that helped the user aim perfectly. The bolts she designed could be made from different materials for different purposes. Some were hard steel for penetrating armor. Some were designed to carry small explosive charges. Some were designed to disrupt electronic systems. "This," Ha-Un told Minho, holding up the first prototype. This is not a weapon from the past. This is a weapon of the future. The Valens think crossbows are primitive, but they will not be expecting one of these. Teo arrived at the mountain workshop a week later. He had brought students with him, young people who had learned archery from him. There were 15 of them at first, young men and women who wanted to fight back against the aliens. Teo began teaching them immediately. He taught them how to stand, how to breathe, how to understand the wind and distance, how to be patient, how to wait for the perfect moment to shoot. A good archer is like a hunter, Teo told them as they practiced in the mountains. A hunter understands the animal. A hunter waits. A hunter never misses because the hunter has practiced 10,000 times before. You will practice until shooting is as natural to you as breathing. The students were tired and sore, but they learned. Day after day they practiced in the hidden valleys, where the Valens drones could not see them. Their arms became strong, their eyes became sharp, their minds became calm and focused. Some of them were naturally good, some took longer to learn, but all of them improved. Jiwon came to the workshop when he was not at school. His parents did not know where he was going. They thought he was at a computer club. Instead, he was in the mountains studying weapons and angles. He was different from the adult fighters. He did not have their strength, but he had something else. He could see distances. He could calculate angles in his head. He could understand how wind would move a projectile. It was like his video game skills had prepared him for this, without him knowing it. Ha-eun noticed something special about Jiwon immediately. She gave him a task. She told him to study the hills and valleys around the workshop and tell her the best positions for shooting. Jiwon spent 3 days walking and looking and thinking. Then he came back with a detailed plan. He had found 17 perfect positions. Each one had a clear view of the valley below. Each one was hidden from view from above. Each one had good shelter and escape routes. Ha-eun studied his work and realized the boy was a genius at strategy and angles. "How did you figure this out?" she asked him. "In video games, I always think about the best place to stand," Jiwon said simply. "The place where I can see everything but enemies cannot see me. The place where I can escape if I need to. I just applied that same thinking here. It is not different. It is just bigger." 3 months after they started, the first operation was planned. A Valens patrol had been spotted near Seoul. They were checking buildings for hidden weapons. They were destroying anything they found suspicious. Minho decided it was time to strike. It was time to show that humans could fight back. Ha-eun, Teo, and 20 trained archers moved into position. Jiwon stayed at the main workshop with Minho, monitoring the operation through communications. The Valens patrol was small, only 5 soldiers in armor and 2 flying drones. The humans were outnumbered, but they had positions. They had training. They had surprise. When the Valens soldiers walked into the valley, the operation began. A slingshot loaded with an electromagnetic pulse projectile was fired from the highest position. The pulse was designed to disable the flying drones. It worked. The first drone fell from the sky like a broken bird. The second drone fired at the position where the shot came from, but Teo and his people had already moved. They were gone before the drone could strike. Then the crossbows opened fire. Bolts flew from 17 different positions at once. The Valens soldiers had never seen anything like it. They expected guns to come from the front. Instead, fire came from everywhere, from above and below, from left and right. The armor protected them from regular attacks, but these crossbows were not regular. The bolts were traveling at incredible speeds. The armor had weak points, and Ha-eun had designed the bolts to find those weak points. 4 of the 5 Valens soldiers fell. The last one tried to call for help, but Ha-eun had designed a signal jammer hidden in the bolts. It prevented radio transmission. The soldier ran, but Teo caught him with a careful shot to the legs. The Valens soldier was captured. It was over in minutes. The humans moved back into the hills before reinforcements could arrive. The captured Valen soldier was taken to the workshop. For the first time, humans were able to study a Valens up close. They learned about the armor, about the weapons, about the psychology of the soldier. The soldier refused to talk much, but Minho was able to get some information. "Your primitive weapons," the Valen soldier said, "cannot defeat us. One soldier was unlucky, but the Valens have millions of soldiers. You cannot win this war." "We do not need to win," Minho replied calmly. "We just need to show that we can fight. We just need to show that you cannot control us. We just need to show that we are not defeated." News of the first victory spread quickly through underground channels, through whispered conversations, through internet messages that the Valens could not quite track. Humans everywhere heard that someone had fought the aliens and won. It gave them hope. It showed them that the Valens were not all-powerful. It showed them that there was a way to resist. In other countries, other people heard the story and had the same idea. Engineers in Europe began designing crossbows. Archers in Asia began training. Scientists everywhere realized the same thing that Ha-Yun had realized. The old weapons could be made new. The primitive could become advanced. And the Valens, in their arrogance, had left a path open for humanity to fight back. Minho watched the celebrations in the workshop quietly. He knew this was just the beginning. The Valens would figure out what was happening soon enough. They would understand what the humans were doing. They would adapt. They would send more soldiers. They would search harder. But for now, for this moment, humanity had struck the first real blow against the occupation, and everything had changed. The victory in the mountains became a symbol for all of humanity. Within weeks, resistance movements began in every continent. In America, engineers were building crossbows in basements. In Europe, archers were training in forests. In Africa and Asia, people were learning the techniques that Teo had developed. The Valens had made a terrible mistake by underestimating humans. They had not understood that humans are clever and creative when they are cornered. Minho realized that to make this resistance work, they needed to organize better. They could not just have random attacks here and there. They needed a plan. They needed coordination. He called Ha-Yun and Teo and Ji-won to a meeting. They were no longer just hiding in the mountains. They had become leaders of a global resistance movement. "We need to train more people," Minho said. "We need to build more weapons. We need to attack more targets. But we also need to be smart about it. Every attack must count. Every shot must matter." Ha-Yun had been working on new designs. She showed them plans for weapons that were even more advanced than the first crossbows. She had created slingshots that could fire multiple projectiles at once. She had designed bolts that could carry different payloads. Some could carry chemicals that would damage the Valen's armor. Some could carry small cameras that would transmit information about enemy positions. Some could carry smoke pellets that would create confusion. "The Valens are learning," Ha-Yun said. "Their armor is getting thicker. Their drones are getting smarter. We need to stay ahead of them. We need to make weapons that they cannot predict." Teo had expanded his training. He now had hundreds of archers and crossbow fighters. They trained in secret locations all over the world. He created a manual that explained how to train a fighter in weeks instead of months. He explained the philosophy behind good archery. He taught not just how to shoot, but why shooting worked, why patience worked, why understanding the wind and the distance worked. Ji-won was now 14 years old, and he had become something like a legend among the fighters. Stories about him spread. Stories about a boy who could calculate angles perfectly. A boy who could tell a fighter where to stand to make an impossible shot. A boy whose advice had saved lives. He was too young to fight directly, but his mind was making a difference in every battle. The Valens noticed the increased resistance. They sent more drones. They increased patrols. They started destroying buildings where they suspected fighters were hiding. But the humans were learning to hide better. They learned to move faster. They learned to fight in ways the Valens did not expect. Then something changed. The Valens brought in a new commander. His name was Krell, and he was different from the soldiers who had come before. He was older and smarter. He understood that humans were clever. He understood that underestimating humanity had been a mistake. He began to study how the humans fought. He began to understand their tactics. Krell sent a message to Minho. The message came through the underground network that the humans used. It said, "I want to meet with you. I want to understand what you are trying to achieve. I want to see if we can talk instead of fight." Minho knew this could be a trap, but he also knew something important. The Valens were worried now. They were no longer confident that they could simply control humans. Something had shifted. He agreed to meet Krell in a neutral location, an abandoned building on the coast where Krell could not bring his entire army. The meeting took place on a cloudy afternoon. Minho brought Ha-Yun, Tae-O, and Ji-Won with him. Krell arrived with only 2 guards. The Valen's commander was tall, even taller than the regular soldiers. His armor was different, darker and more advanced. His eyes studied everything carefully. "You are losing," Krell said when they met. "You have won some battles, but you are losing the war. We have millions of soldiers. We have technology that you cannot match. Why do you continue to resist when you cannot win?" Ji-Won spoke up before Minho could answer. The boy was calm and confident. "Because winning is not the point," Ji-Won said. "You can have all the soldiers and all the technology, but you cannot have our freedom. You cannot make us stop being human. Humans do not give up. Humans do not accept defeat as long as they can still fight. That is what makes us human." Krell looked at the boy for a long time. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. It was not a friendly smile, but it was a smile that showed understanding. "That is what I came to tell your leader," Krell said. "The Valen's High Command wants to discuss ending this occupation, not because we cannot win militarily, but because they have realized something. You cannot be defeated unless you accept defeat. And you will never accept defeat. Every human you kill only makes other humans more determined to resist. We gain nothing by destroying you. We only create more enemies." Minho felt something shift inside him. Was this real? Could it really be ending this way? "What does the High Command want?" Minho asked. "They want to negotiate," Krell said. "They want to understand you better. They want to know if there is a way that humans and Valens can live together. But first, they want proof that humans are worth negotiating with. They want to see one more great victory. They want to see that your resistance is unified and powerful. Then they will listen." Over the next 2 months, something extraordinary happened. Instead of hiding, the human resistance became visible. They organized a massive training exercise in the mountains. Thousands of fighters came from all over the world. They came to learn the techniques that had been developed. They came to become part of something larger than themselves. Ha-Yun had designed a new weapon that she called the perfect crossbow. It was so advanced that it was almost like technology from science fiction. The targeting system could calculate wind and distance automatically. The bolts could be guided slightly in the air through small adjustments. The accuracy was nearly perfect. Tae-O taught the fighters how to use these weapons. He taught them how to move together, how to coordinate attacks, how to support each other. 50,000 fighters gathered in the mountains. 50,000 humans ready to fight for their freedom. Ji-Won was asked to coordinate the targeting for the entire force. It was an impossible task, but the boy accepted it. He worked with communication specialists to create a system where he could tell different groups where to aim. His young mind could see patterns and angles that older minds could not see. "When we fight," Ji-Won told the gathered fighters, speaking through a public address system, "we fight not just for ourselves, we fight for everyone on Earth. We fight to show that humans are not weak. We fight to show that humans deserve to be free. Every one of you has value. Every shot matters. Trust your training. Trust each other." and we will show the Valens what humanity can do." The fighters cheered. They were no longer afraid. They were no longer hiding. They were standing together, ready to show the universe what humans were capable of. Minho watched them and felt proud. The war was far from over, but humanity was no longer fighting alone and scattered. Humanity was fighting as one. The day of the great battle arrived on a morning filled with mist. The Valens had announced they were coming. They wanted to see what the humans could do. A Valens force of 10,000 soldiers marched toward the mountain training facility where 50,000 human fighters waited. It was not a secret battle. It was announced to the world. Everyone was watching to see what would happen. Minho stood on the highest mountain peak and looked down at the valley below. The mist was thick, which was good. The mist would hide positions. The mist would make it harder for Valens technology to work perfectly. Beside him stood Ha-Un and Teo. Far below, in a hidden command center, Ji-Wan was looking at maps and calculations. The boy had studied every angle of the valley. He had memorized every position where a fighter could stand and shoot. "Remember," Minho told the hundreds of commanders who were gathered with him, "the Valens will expect us to fight like their soldiers. They will expect organized formations and head-to-head combat. We will not do that. We will fight like humans have always fought when they face a stronger enemy. We will use the land. We will use their own arrogance against them. We will use the skills that Teo has taught us." The communication system crackled. Ji-Wan's voice came through, calm and clear despite his young age. "Valens' force is entering the valley. All groups stand by. Wait for my command." 10,000 Valens soldiers marched into the valley. They were in formation, armored and confident. They had weapons that humans did not have. They had armor that seemed almost impenetrable. They looked like an unstoppable force. But they did not understand the mountains. They did not understand the valleys and ridges. They did not understand that 50,000 humans had studied this ground for weeks. They knew every rock, every hill, every place where a shot could come from. "Fire," Ji-Wan said simply. What happened next was something that would be remembered in history forever. From every direction, from impossible angles, projectiles rained down on the Valens' force. Bolts flew from cliff sides. Arrows came from ridges above. Slingshots fired from hidden positions. The sky seemed to be filled with projectiles. The Valens soldiers tried to form a defensive position, but there was no defensive position that could protect them from fire coming from everywhere. The Valens commander tried to organize a response, but every time soldiers tried to move toward where the fire was coming from, new fire came from a completely different direction. It was like fighting ghosts. The humans were never where the Valens expected them to be. Ha-Yun's perfect crossbows proved their value. The bolts were so accurate that they found the weak points in the armor. The targeting systems meant that almost every shot hit something important. The Valens soldiers began to fall. At first it was a few. Then it was dozens. Then it was hundreds. Teo was on the front lines with his best archers. They moved like dancers, shooting and moving, shooting and moving. They never stayed in one place long enough for the Valens to locate them. Teo himself shot 17 times. All 17 shots found their targets. All 17 Valens soldiers fell. The Valens commander realized he was in trouble. He called for air support. Valens aircraft began to arrive, but Ha-Un had prepared for this. She had designed small guided projectiles that could be fired from high-powered crossbows. When the aircraft came, these projectiles rose to meet them. The pilots of the aircraft had never seen anything like it. Projectiles that seemed to follow them. Projectiles that adjusted their path in the air. 2 aircraft were hit and crashed. The others retreated. After 3 hours of battle, the Valens force was broken. More than half the soldiers were dead or wounded. The rest were in full retreat. They had been defeated by people with crossbows and slingshots. Defeated by people with training and coordination. Defeated by people who understood their land and used it to their advantage. Jiwan had coordinated the entire battle from his command center. He had told groups when to move. He had told them when to wait. He had called out enemy positions that he could see on his maps and screens. The 50,000 fighters had acted like one organism, one coordinated force. And they had won. The human fighters began to move down the mountain to help the wounded. But not the Violins wounded. The Violins soldiers were taken into custody carefully. Minho wanted to show that humans were not like the Violins. Humans did not kill enemies who could not fight anymore. Humans took prisoners. Humans showed mercy. When the battle was over, the Valen's commander, who had been leading the force, sent a message. He was wounded but alive. He wanted to speak with Minho. In a tent on the battlefield, with snow falling around them, two warriors from different worlds sat face to face. "You should have died," the Valen's commander said. "My force was superior in every way." "But you made a mistake," Minho replied. "You thought we were weak because we were using old weapons. You thought we would fight the way your soldiers fight. You did not understand that humans are creative. We do not think in straight lines. We do not follow rules the way you do. We find ways around problems. We adapt to anything." The Valen's commander nodded slowly. "I will tell the High Command what I have seen here. I will tell them that humans cannot be defeated by force alone. I will tell them that it is time to negotiate." Word of the victory spread across the world in minutes. Every human who had been fighting in secret, training in forests and basements, suddenly felt hope. They had been right to believe. They had been right to train. They had been right to resist. And they had won. But Ji-Wan did not celebrate. The boy sat alone in the command center and looked at the numbers. 53 human fighters had been killed. 300 more had been wounded. 53 families were grieving tonight. 300 fighters had pain. Victory was not clean. Victory was not without cost. Ha-Yun found him there. She sat beside the boy and put a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," she said. "You coordinated a battle that saved thousands of lives. You are a young hero." "They are dead," Ji-Wan said quietly. 53 people who trusted my instructions are now dead. And 10,000 Valens might have lived if you had not done your job, Ha-Yun replied. But you did your job. You did it well. You saved people. You gave humans a future. That is what matters. Outside the tent, Minho and Teo watched the sunrise over the mountains. The war was not over, but something important had changed. Humans had proven they could not be conquered. Humans had proven they deserved respect. And now maybe it was time for talking. Maybe it was time for peace. The news of the human victory shook the Valen's high command. For centuries, the Valens had moved from world to world, imposing their rules, maintaining their order. Humans had been expected to surrender like all the others had, but humans had not surrendered. Humans had found a way to fight back with weapons the Valens had considered primitive and useless. The High Command called an emergency session. In their vast meeting chamber floating above Seoul, the Valens leaders debated what should be done. Some wanted to send more forces. Some wanted to use more powerful weapons. Some wanted to simply destroy humanity and move on to other worlds. But one of the oldest council members, a Valens named Vextral, who had lived for 300 years, spoke up. "We came here to bring peace," Vextral said. "We believed that by removing weapons we could create peace. But we were wrong. Humans do not want to be controlled. Humans do not want peace imposed on them from outside. Humans want freedom, and they will fight for freedom. We must understand something important. A species that will not surrender, even when they face overwhelming power, is a species worth respect. A species that can adapt and overcome like this is a species worth negotiating with." After 3 days of debate, the Valen's High Command made a decision. They would negotiate with humanity. They would discuss terms. They would see if there was a way for both species to share the world. But first, They wanted more evidence of human determination. They wanted to see if the human victory was a single lucky event, or if it showed something real about human nature. Minho was informed of the Valen's decision through Krell, the commander who had become something like a bridge between the two species. They want to see more, Krell explained. They want to see if other humans in other places can achieve similar victories. If you can, then they will believe that humans truly cannot be defeated. Then they will negotiate in good faith. The message spread through the human resistance network. Fighters all over the world prepared for action. In Europe, resistance cells organized attacks on Valen's military installations. In Africa, human fighters attacked Valen's ships. In South America, coordinated strikes hit multiple targets in a single day. In Asia, from the Philippines to India, the resistance struck everywhere. And everywhere the humans struck, they won. Ha Yun's designs had been shared with engineers around the world. The techniques that Teo had developed were being taught in every country. Fighters who had never met Minho were using strategies that he had developed. Humans were unified in a way they had never been before. Race did not matter. Religion did not matter. Nationality did not matter. What mattered was that they were human, and they would not accept defeat. In Tokyo, 300 human fighters attacked a major Valen's command post using only crossbows and slingshots. They won. In Lagos, 200 fighters attacked a Valen's communications center. They won. In São Paulo, 400 fighters attacked a Valen's military base. They won. Every victory made the next victory easier because fighters became more confident, because more people believed that resistance was possible. The Valen's High Command watched these victories with increasing concern. It became clear to them that this was not a one-time lucky event. This was a pattern. Humans everywhere were capable of this. Humans everywhere would fight. The Valens had to make a choice. They could continue fighting and face endless resistance from billions of humans, or they could accept that they had met their match and negotiate. 3 weeks after the Great Mountain Battle, Minho received an official invitation. The Valens wanted to meet with human representatives to discuss peace. The location would be neutral. The meeting would be on a remote island in the Pacific Ocean. Minho was told he could bring whoever he wanted. He chose to bring Ha-Yun because she had created the weapons that gave humans hope. He brought Tae-O because he represented human tradition and skill. He brought Ji-Won, and this surprised many people. But Minho knew that the boy represented something important about humanity. He represented the future. He represented the fact that even the young could be wise and could make a difference. The meeting took place in a large building that was neutral territory. Both sides brought a small guard, but weapons were left outside. Inside, humans and Valens faced each other across a table for the first time as potential equals. The Valen's leader was not Krell. It was Vex Troll, the old council member who had argued for negotiation. He was smaller than the other Valens, and his blue skin was lighter, almost gray. He studied Minho carefully. "You have proven something that we did not believe possible," Vextral said. "You have proven that humans are not easily controlled. You have proven that humans will resist any attempt to remove their freedom. This is something we must respect." "We do not want war," Minho replied. "We want to live. We want to be free. We want to choose our own future. If the Valens can accept this, then we can have peace." "But what about the weapon ban?" another Valens leader asked. "If we remove it, won't humans go back to building guns and missiles?" Ha-Yun spoke up. "Some probably will," she said. "Humans are not perfect, but the Valens will have to accept that. Humans have the right to defend themselves. You came to our world and told us what weapons we could have. You told us what to do. That is what caused this war. If you want peace, you must give us freedom. Real freedom." Ji-Won, sitting quietly at the table, suddenly spoke. His voice was young, but it carried weight. "My parents wanted me to have a good life," he said. "They wanted me to study and learn and become someone important. But instead, I spent these last months fighting a war. A lot of people died. A lot of people got hurt. I do not want more children to have to do what I did. But I will do it again if I have to. Because being free is more important than being safe. Humans will always choose freedom. Always. The Valen's leaders looked at each other. Something in what the boy said touched them. They understood that they were facing something they had not understood before. They were facing a species that would always choose freedom, even if it meant suffering, even if it meant war. After 2 weeks of negotiation, an agreement was reached. The weapon ban was lifted. Humans would have the right to possess any weapons they wanted. The Valens would withdraw their military forces from Earth. But in exchange, humans would agree not to attack Valen's territories, and humans would be invited to join an interstellar council where different species could discuss problems and work out solutions peacefully. The treaty was signed. It was a moment that would change everything, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. Because the Valens realized something important. They realized that imposing peace through force did not work. They realized that freedom was more valuable than security. They realized that cooperation was better than control. As Minho, Ha-Un, Tayo, and Ji-Won left the meeting, Vextral walked with them to the door. "You have taught us something important," the old Valen said. "You have taught us that strength is not always about power. Sometimes strength is about refusing to give up. Sometimes strength is about believing in something so much that you will fight for it no matter what. This is a strength the Valens had forgotten." Outside the building, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. The war was over. Humanity had won not through overwhelming power, but through creativity, determination, and the simple refusal to accept defeat. And now a new chapter was beginning. A chapter where humans and Valens would learn to live together. A chapter where the universe would see that peace was possible, but only if it was based on freedom and respect.